Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are going to be taking a look at day number 2 of the quarterfinal knockouts of the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Tour. Now, on the first day, I had a very disappointing draw against Javokhir Sindarov from Uzbekistan, which means the match is tied with one draw each, and now we play the second game. So I was black yesterday. In the second game, I have the white pieces in the classical format, and now I open with the move knight b3. Now, I could have played a move like f3 or f4 here to try and target this pawn on a7. If black moves the pawn, for example, you lose the pawn and the rook as well as the game. So I play knight b3, we get knight b6 here, both of us trying to avoid blundering the pawn on the diagonal, and now I play the move e4. Here, Sindarov plays e5, and now I play this move pawn to f3. We get knight c6, and now I play the move d4. Now, one of the things with Fischer Random Chess is that a lot of the players have the same ideas in terms of the opening approach and what they're looking for out of the gate. As such, this position after takes, and the move queen to e5 was played in 2 games. Not only was it a game, my game against Javokhir, but also this was played in the game between Vladimir Fedoseev and Levon Aronian. So here I play the move queen to d2, following the Fedoseev game, and now we get the move f6. Here I play the move knight to c3, guarding this pawn on a2 from being captured, and now Sindarov plays move queen a5. Now in the game between Fedoseev and Aronian, the move castles was played, and I actually intended to play this move knight c b5, and I thought that I would have a very good position. So I was very annoyed when Sindarov played the move queen to a5 because Aronian's game with Fedoseev did go with castles, and Sindarov definitely saw the position, but he chooses to change the move order with queen a5 first. Now I play the move a3 to stop bishop b4, trying to pin the knight, and Sindarov trades the knights. I take back with the queen, and now we get the move bishop d6, and here I play the move g3. Now what I'm trying to do here is finish my development on the king side potentially, but I also want to stop black from being able to play bishop to f4 or potentially queen g5 to check the king. So we get bishop e5, I play queen b4, now we get queen takes queen. Worth pointing out that if Sindarov were to play the move bishop takes c3, this would run into a checkmate with queen to f8 as the king has no moves, and similar to the regular rules of chess, black cannot castle the king out of check by putting the rook on d8. So Sindarov trades the queens, plays rook a8, and now I play the move rook to a1. We get the move bishop takes knight, I take back, and here he plays knight c4. Now at this point, I have a very tiny advantage because I have the 2 b's here in an endgame, but it is not anything substantial. So I play the move b5, Sindarov plays knight to e5, and now I play the move f4, trying to target the knight. We get bishop to c4 here, and now I play the move bishop g2. It's worth pointing out, computer says after the move bishop to h3 here, knight to f7 and b6, maybe white has a very tiny advantage, but I really don't believe that, at least in human practice. So I go bishop g2. Now we get the move knight to f7, here I play the move rook b1, and Sindarov plays a5. Now I play the move b6 here, an important move because if I play a move like bishop to f2, for example, after b6, suddenly black has an outside pass pawn to push up the board, and I also have a weak pawn on b5, but more importantly, this dark square b is simply not super active as it's staring at a closed diagonal. So I play b6, Sindarov plays rook a6, I play bishop d4, and now we get the move rook e8. Here I play the move rook d1, Sindarov plays d6, and now I decide to take the pawn on c7. Now at this point, after king takes pawn and e5 is played, I felt very good about my position because now both the diagonals are opening up for the b's here, and at any rate, I should be in no danger. So we get d5, I trade the pawns on f6, and here I play the move bishop to f3, trying to pressure the pawn on f6, but also aiming for bishop to h5, pinning the knight on f7. Sindarov plays a4, I go rook to a1, and now we get the move pawn to f5. Now at this point, I was actually a little bit worried about the position. Even though Sindarov was way down on time here, it's a very easy position for black to play. If you can get this knight to e4, b5, combined with this outside a pawn, black has all the chances in the world to win the game. Additionally, you'll notice that this wooden shield on d4 here, which looks really well placed, simply targets nothing. There's nothing on any of the diagonals here for the dark square b, so for that reason, this bishop is simply not a great piece. So I go king b2, and now we get the move knight d6. Here I play bishop e5, and Sindarov makes a big mistake with the move rook to a5. Now, I was all ready to make a draw here after the move king c6. I was going to trade everything off, play the move c4 here, heading to a rook and pawn endgame, and I simply thought that this would be a draw. Sindarov instead plays move rook to a5, and now after the move rook to e1, it gets a little bit tricky to play for black. So Sindarov goes to king c6, I trade on d6, and now I play the move king to a3, blockading this passed pawn. But now you'll notice that all these pawns on d5, f5, and h7 are light square pawns, meaning that my bishop can target them, whereas all my pawns here are on dark squares versus the bishop on c4. So we get the move rook a8. I play rook to e5, we get rook f8, and now I play the move bishop g2, intending to play bishop h3, winning the pawn. Sindarov plays rook f6, bishop h3, rook h6, takes, and now I take the pawn on a4. Now at this point, I am up a pawn in the endgame. I have 4 pawns versus 3, but my extra pawn is a double c pawn, meaning that with perfect play, the game should still be a draw. That being said, with 6 extra minutes on the clock, I thought that I might get some chances to win. So we get rook a1. Here I play the move king to a3, and now Sindarov plays the move h5, and here I go king b2. Now, the reason I play king b2 here is I never want to really end up in a situation where maybe my king gets cut off sides, maybe black can try to checkmate the king on a3. It's simply a practical move to play as I stop any threats on this back rank. So now Sindarov plays rook g1. Here I play the move rook to e6. We get king c5, and now I go rook e3 guarding the pawn. Sindarov plays b5, and here I play the move bishop e6, and we get king to d6. Now, unfortunately for me, even though my young Uzbeki opponent is low on time, he is finding the best moves in this position. If he were to play a move like b4, which is what I was hoping for, after pawn takes, king takes, and rook to f3, now I have the rook behind the pawn, and I'm simply pushing my p up the board, and I should win the game. But he finds the move king to d6, which is very important here, because one move I'd love to play is bishop f7, targeting the pawn on h5, but now black has d4, creating the fossil. Bishop targets the bishop, and the pawn hits the rook at the same time, and now I'm going to lose either the rook or the bishop on f7, and the game as well. Now, the reason this is so important here is that the bishop can really only target the pawn from either f7 or e8. Now, I can't go to d7 to e8 because I would hang the bishop, and the only other way to try to get it on the diagonal is with bishop g6 here, but now after h4, black is actually completely fine. So the problem for me here is I can't get the bishop on this diagonal to hit the pawn, and with the inability to do that, it's simply not enough to win the game. So I go bishop to f5, we get king c5 back, and now I play the move bishop h7. Sindarov plays b4 here, I trade the pawns, and now I go rook f3. Now at this point, I'm desperate to push the pawn up the board, but after the move d4 is played, now there's no way to really make progress. Now, the move I initially wanted to play was f5 here, but due to the time situation, I was actually kind of worried that black could sack another pawn here. And if I take the pawn on d3, after rook g2, king c1, bishop d5, let's just say I go rook f4. Now after king c3, suddenly my king is in real danger of getting checkmated, and this is not what I want at all. So I play the move bishop to e4. Idea is if d3, I can always take with the bishop, and I want to push the f pawn up the board. But Sindarov plays bishop f7, now I go rook a3, and here we get the move bishop c4 back. Now Sindarov has played great, he is defending this perfectly, and now I play the move f5, trying to push my p. We get rook to e1, and now I play bishop f3, and after rook f1, we repeat once, and then I play the move bishop takes pawn on h5. At this point, there isn't really a whole lot I can do. If I play the move f6 here, black again has this idea with d3 and rook f2 check, or even bishop to f7, where the bishop guards the pawn on h5, and now my bishop and the pawn are permanently under attack. So I take the pawn, now we get d3 being played. At this point, the game is going to be a draw because too many of the pawns are going to be traded off the board. So I play rook to a8, we get pawn takes pawn, check, king a5, takes, and now after rook takes f5, I still have one extra pawn on g3, but against a top-level player at around a 2700 level, there is no chance to win. So I go king c3, we get bishop b5, g4, rook d5, rook g8, and now we get the move rook d3, king c2, and rook g3 going after the pawn on g4. Now, if this were a normal situation, I probably would already offer a draw here because there's no way of winning, but I decide to play on. We go king d2, bishop c4, I play rook g7, and now he starts to bring his king back over towards the center of the board. I go g5, king c5, king e1, and now we get the move bishop d5. Here I play king f2, rook g2, king e3, and Sindarov plays king d6, trying to get the king ever closer to this g-pawn. So now I go bishop e8, we get king e5, I go rook e7, king d6, rook d7, king e5, and I play the move g6. Sindarov goes rook g3, king f2, rook g2, king f1, and now he plays the move rook g5. Here I go rook to a7, we get king to f6, I play king f2, and now after the move rook to e5, I decide to finish the game with bishop f7, we get the trade, king g7, king f3, rook f5, king g4, and after rook takes f7, I trade the rooks off, and the game ends with bare kings on the board, and it ends in a draw. So this game, I'm going to give full credit to my young Uzbeki opponent. He defended this game very, very well, both in the opening phase when he chose to not follow the famous Armenian Grandmaster Levon Aronian when he decided to play queen a5 instead of castle, showing great original thinking, but then also to defend this endgame and not crack under the pressure. So, both games end in a draw in the classical portion, and that means we are headed to the dreaded playoff with the rapid format of 10 minutes and a 10-second increment. So the first game, I'm playing with the white pieces. Now, going into this tiebreaker after a very long four-hour-plus game, I told myself the most important thing is to move fast and try to put pressure on the clock. So I play the move f4. Sindarov plays knight c6, and now I play e4 here, trying to build the big white center with all these pawns out. Sindarov plays e5, I trade, and now I play the move knight c3. Now at this point, similar to our first game of the day, Sindarov is trying to activate his queen very early. One important thing I've noticed about Fischer Random Chess is that if you can bring the queen out and it can't be hit by a knight, for example, I can't put a knight on f3 or a knight on d3 right away, it is something where normally the queen is completely fine coming out early if it can't be attacked. So we get the move bishop b4. Now I play the move knight f2. Computer apparently prefers knight g3, but I'm simply trying to play fast. We get bishop takes c3, and here I decide to take the bishop, and this was the first slight mistake. Now, as soon as I took the bishop on c3, I realized that I could have played knight d3 first, attacking the queen, and if black were to play a move like bishop takes pawn, I can take the queen, and after bishop takes queen, knight takes d7 would be a smothered checkmate, as the king has no squares available. So this is the first thing I realized as soon as I had taken that I should have played knight d3 first, and the main reason I should have done this is if he played queen e7, takes, and rook e8, so that we get something very similar to the game here. I thought that after the move queen g3, with the idea of rook to e1, white should be a little bit better. So instead I decide to take the bishop. Now we get the move rook to e8, and here I cannot play knight d3 because now black will simply take the pawn. That's why I needed to play knight d3, queen e7 first. So now I go for the move g3, trying to fianchetto the bishop to g2. We get the move knight g6, and here I play the move bishop g2. Sindarov plays queen e7, and I go knight d3. We get f6, and here I play the move a4. Now this is a move that I was playing on field. As you can tell from the time usage, I'm trying to put pressure on my opponent, just trying to play quickly and not think too long. Also, in a lot of these Fischer random positions, when you have rooks on a1 and a8, if you can take space on the side of the board, usually the computers like it. So I play a4, we get castles, I go queen to f1, and here Sindarov plays the move bishop c4. Now after queen to f1, I was already feeling very good because the logical move that black is trying to play is d5 to open up the center of the board for the two towers, but after d5, I can play the move knight to c5 here, followed by queen b5, and suddenly there are all kinds of threats on the diagonals with the knight and the queen. So Sindarov goes bishop c4. Now I play b3, he takes, and after pawn takes bishop, I have achieved the dream. I have the two b's versus the two knights, but also I've got a great center here. Black cannot really play d5 or f5, and if this were a slow game, I have no doubt that white would win most of the time. So we get queen to e6, and here I play the move king b2, and this is simply a big mistake. Now, in my mind, when Sindarov had played queen e6, the move that I thought he was going to play was queen to f7, and here, after king to b2, white is much better. But when he went queen e6 here, I played king b2 instinctively, and this is a mistake. The move I should have played was king to c2 here, and the reason is that if black tries to play d5, for example, I have bishop to h3, pinning the queen and winning the game. And now if black goes knight a5, similar to the game, after rook c b1, both my rooks have scope on the back rank. So instead I play the move king b2. Sindarov goes knight a5, I play rook to a3, guarding the pawn, and now he plays the move knight e5. Now at this point, I use a lot of time before playing the move king c2, and this is the start of going in the wrong direction. Now the move that I should have played here was pawn to d4. After knight c4, takes, and king to a2 here, black has no tricks. If black goes knight e3, trying to create the fossil where you check the king and attack the queen, I have the in-between move pawn to d5, and now I attack his queen at the same time. So if I played the move d4 here, there's very little doubt in my mind that I probably would go on to win this game. If black plays knight to f7, now I can play d5, and we get something very similar to the game, except that when black moves the queen to, say, e7, now I can play b4, trapping the knight on a5. But instead I play the move king c2. Now we get king b8, and here I play the move d4. We get knight to f7, and now I make a move that maybe is correct according to the computer, but a move that I think makes it very difficult for me to play, and that is the move d5. Now, it probably looks very similar to the game, but the problem is after move queen to e7 here, now if I play b4 trying to trap the knight where there's no squares, black can play knight to e5, and after rook a2 and knight c4, apparently after a5, white is winning, but it's very, very chaotic because these knights are both outposted here on e5 and c4, and it just feels very hard to play. So, I play the move rook a1. And now Sindarov plays knight e5, and here I make a horrible decision, and I blunder with this move bishop d4. Now in this position, if I use some time, I have no doubt that I probably could have found the move queen to b5, but after the move b6, I simply did not realize how strong this move b4 was. After knight c4, there's queen to a6, followed by a5, and suddenly white is attacking on the a file. Now, in a blitz game, I will honestly say here it's very tough to play because black's moves are reactionary. Now, this is a very high-level concept, but even if a position is worse in regular slow chess, in blitz chess, there are a lot of positions where your opponent is reacting to your moves, and if you don't find the right plan, your advantage can dwindle very quickly. So here I played the move bishop d4 very quick in short order, and this is a move after which I throw away the advantage. Now, as soon as I played bishop d4, I spotted the move which Sindarov would go on to play, which is the move c5, and already here, the advantage is pretty much gone. Now I play the move bishop takes knight. This is also a mistake. I should probably take, and after d takes c6, probably trading and playing something like queen to f4 is good enough. I guess actually black's supposed to take with a pawn, and maybe I play rook d1, maybe not. Maybe I'm supposed to go b4. At any rate, it feels a little bit shaky here, and with such limited time, I didn't want to think. So instead I take the knight, and after queen takes e5, now black is simply better because the bishop is terrible on g2. It's walled in by the two pawns, and now black can try to long-term attack the pawn at e4. Here I play rook e1, we get queen d6, and now I play another terrible move, queen to f5. Now, what I think I should have played here in this position is I think I should have played the move queen to f4, simply trying to trade off the queens and go into an endgame. But after rook e1, queen d6, now I play queen f5, and Sindarov plays rook to e5, and at this point, everything has gone wrong. So here I play the move queen takes h7 after a 30-plus second thing, and this move simply loses the game on the spot. What I should have played here was queen to f2, but even after a move like b6 followed by rook e8, black is just much better in the position. Instead, I spend my time, I take, and I simply overlook the move queen b6, attacking the pawn on b3, and now black also has the idea with c4 bringing the queen in. So I go king d1, we get queen takes pawn, I go king e2. Here I'm trying to run my king manually to the king side, but it's simply too little too late. Sindarov takes, I go king f1, knight b3, and now I play the move rook d1. Now here Sindarov plays the move rook g5, and this is an all-star move. Out of all the moves in this game, which might seem very easy, this is the move which is not easy to play under pressure, but Sindarov finds it as he simply guards the pawn on g7 here while boxing out my queen on h7. Here I play the move e5, desperately trying to open up a diagonal, and Sindarov plays rook takes pawn. Here I trade the rooks on e5, and now I play this move queen takes pawn on g7, and Sindarov goes c4. Now at this point, the game is over. Black is pushing the c pawn up the board here, and there's nothing I can do. So I play d6, we get c3, queen e7, and now Sindarov finds the last important move, rook to e8, although queen takes rook e8, rook takes d7, and c2 would also be winning. We get rook e8, here I play the move rook to e1, hoping for a little bit of a miracle, but Sindarov finds the correct solution with knight d2, king f2, check, rook e3, and now he takes the queen, and on first glance, you might be thinking, I'm pushing this pawn through, and I'm going to win the game, but there's a very nice sacrifice here with knight to e4, checking the king. I cannot take with the rook due to the pin, and after bishop takes knight and queen takes pawn, now black simply has a queen versus a rook and a bishop, and the rest is basic. I play h4, d5, bishop c2, queen c5, now I go king e2, we get d4, I throw in the check, go king d3, desperately trying to win these pawns, but after the move b5, I choose to resign here because there's no way to stop black from winning material. If I take the pawn, after queen takes pawn, I lose the rook on e8, and if I play a move like h5, there's queen c4 check, king e4, and d3, simply winning the game. So, a really unfortunate first game in the blitz tiebreaker, which I lose. I had great chance to win this game, but ultimately I did not find the right moves in the critical moments. So, I lose the first tiebreaker game, and now we move on to the second game where I'm playing with the black pieces. So, Second game, must win, new starting position, and we get the move c4. Now here I play the move g6. Important again to always pay attention to where the pieces are. So if I play a move like b6, after bishop takes h7, I lose the rook and I lose the game. So in this position, I play the move g6, and this is not a move that I normally would play, by the way. I normally would play knight g6, but after knight g6 and f4, most likely I'm going to have to play something like f5, and after g4, white's play will be very straightforward. So even though I know that the move g6 is a little bit dubious, I must win the game, so I have to take some liberties. We get the move g4, and now I play the move c5. We get knight g3, and here I play the move queen g7. Now, this move is a terrible move, make no mistake about it. I knew it was bad during the game, but at least temporarily, white struggles to activate this dark square bishop, and the game can become chaotic. So Sindarov plays knight d3, and now I play the move b5. Now, this move is not necessarily a terrible move per se, but this is a move that I probably should have played a little bit quicker. Now, one thing I did just notice on this board is that there are no times showing, but I spent about 2 minutes, and already here I was down about 3 minutes on the clock. My opponent had 8 minutes, and I had about 5. So Sindarov takes the pawn. Now I go c4, we get the move knight c5, and here I play the move knight b6. Now the only goal in this position for me is to play against this bishop that is dead on a1. White can never push the pawn here because you lose the bishop, and my hope in the long term is that this bishop will remain dead. So Sindarov goes bishop e4, I play d5, bishop f3, and now I play the move bishop to e5, permanently trying to put this bishop in jail on a1. Sindarov plays queen h3, and now I decide to castle my king, and here we get the move king f1. Now in this position, I play the move queen f6, and this move is not necessarily a bad move, but I think what I should have done was played rook c8 first to attack the knight, and after, say, knight a6, now I can maybe play queen to f6, and we reach a position very similar to the game, but there's going to be one key difference with the knight on a6 versus c5, which is the knight can never go to e6. All right, so I play queen f6 instead. Now we get knight to f5, I take the knight, he takes, and I go knight g6, we get takes, and here it looks pretty balanced. White is up one extra pawn on b5 here, but this bishop is still stuck on this long diagonal here, and it looks like I'm in great shape. So here we got to move d4, I take the pawn, and Sindarov plays knight e6. In this position, I play bishop to e5, we get knight takes rook, and I play the move rook takes knight. Now here I've sacked the rook, but again, white has a dead bishop on a1, and I think my chances of winning are very good. Sindarov goes queen h6, and here I play the move bishop f4, we get queen h5, and now I play the move king g7, intending to go rook h8 and attacking the queen on h5. Sindarov plays b3, and now I go for the move c3, trying to push my p, but also keeping the diagonal closed. Sindarov plays rook g4, and this is a huge blunder after which I should be winning the game. Now, the correct move according to the computer is move pawn to e3, trying to slam the door shut on the diagonal so that I can't push the c-pawn up the board. And after rook h8 and queen g4 and bishop e5, something like rook c1, this is a complete mess. It's very, very chaotic here. White has an extra rook, but anything can happen. Instead, we get the move rook g4, and now I play the move d4, further reinforcing this pawn on c3, but also further closing down the diagonal for the bishop. So we get bishop takes bishop, and now I play the move rook takes bishop, and at this point, I should win the game. As you can tell, it is plus 2.2 for black. Sindarov plays queen h4, I play c2, we get rook e1, takes, and now I make a queen. Sindarov takes the queen, I take, and after rook takes d4, it's time to take stock of the position. I have an extra piece on the board, an extra knight in return for 2 pawns on the queen side, and this should be winning. So I play bishop g5 here. Now this move might look really awkward because I'm walking into all kinds of fossils on the diagonal, but if white plays rook to d8, attacking the rook and checking the king, I simply block with the bishop and my knight covers the rook on a8. So Sindarov plays rook d6. I go king f8, rook c6, and now I play the move bishop f4. Sindarov plays a4, and this is a moment where I play the best move according to the computer, but it's a move that in practice I should never play here. Now, unfortunately, the clocks aren't showing on this game, but at this point, I had, I think, a minute and a half to Sindarov's about 35-40 seconds, and here I decide to take the pawn on h2. Now, there's nothing wrong with this move. Black is still winning, but in practice, from a human perspective, the move that I should play here is rook to c8, simply trading off the rooks, because there is now no danger for white to ever really push these pawns up and get a queen. If white goes a5, for example, at the very least, I can play bishop c7, b4, and knight d6, and this pawn clump is never going to amount to anything significant. Instead, I take the pawn, Sindarov plays a5, I go knight d5, and now we get the move bishop d4. Now in this position, I play the move rook b8, and this is the first of several blunders in a row which I make. Now in this position, the move that I should have played was king to e8, because if white goes rook to a6, trying to win the pawn, I have knight c7, takes, and after knight b5, bishop b6, I simply bring my king over, and these two pawns can get together on b4 and a5, but they are not going to go up the board very far. Instead, I play rook b8, which is just a bad move here. And now after bishop takes pawn, rook takes, and the move a6, I'm still a little bit better, but in this position, there is only one move to win the game, and that move is knight c7. Alas, I do not find the move. Instead, I play rook to a5, and now after the move bishop to d4, suddenly out of nowhere, I have messed this all up. White is pushing the a pawn up the board, the bishop covers a square, so rook c8 is now a checkmate threat, and already here, it's just spiraled away from me. So I play the move e5 here, Sindarov checks, I go king e8, plays a7, and now I play the move e4 with 5 seconds left on the clock, and I simply offered Sindarov a draw here. Now you might be wondering why I offered him a draw versus playing on. I could have also resigned the game, obviously, but I was so fed up and disgusted, I simply offered a draw. There's no rating on the line, and Sindarov, of course, wins the match by taking the draw. Now, of course, he could have played rook c8 check, king d7, queen the pawn, and after takes, white simply has a rook for a knight, and white should win the game. So the end is kind of a little bit awkward for sure, but at any rate, it ends in a draw. Now, what do I have to say about this game? I think what I would have to say is that this is shocking. By any normal metric, this game is a game that I should never end up in trouble in, let alone not win, but I find a way to misplay it. So what does that mean? What this means, in my view, is that it's very clear that when I get into these scrambles in these games, my brain at some point just stops working. I simply, for whatever reason, it shuts down. I can't come up with the right idea, and I panic. I guess there's a classic meme with the panic or something on the face. I forgot what it is, but I simply panic and lose complete control. Now, it's also just kind of inexplicable because this is a game that I would say, much like yesterday's game, I should win 99 out of 100. I'm not going to talk about the first Blitz game necessarily being like that because that was a little bit more complicated, but this is a game where I was up a piece for nothing. This is a game that I should have won, and I did not find a way to win it, and it's really just not acceptable, at least by my high level of standards. So, very, very disappointing game that ends in a draw. I mean, of course, I should have won this one. Maybe you could argue I should have won the first one. I had 3 winning positions, and I was unable to convert in a single one of them. I would go on to lose one and draw the other 2. So really, really disappointing. But as I like to say, sometimes things happen for a reason. Now, this also leads to a bigger topic, which I did mention in an interview afterwards on my Kick stream, which is that if I'm going to start losing games where I get the great positions, but my brain stops working, it starts to lead to certain thoughts creeping into my mind about the future. Now, if I were getting outplayed in all these games, for example, from start to finish and something like that, it's much more palatable because you feel like that is something where your skill might be declining, your players are outplaying you, but when it's become self-inflicted and it feels like something which should never happen but starts happening frequently, especially as you get older, there is a certain word that starts with an R, which is now on my mind. I'm not going to sort of bounce around the topic or ignore it, but I will say right now, and this is probably going to make some news, if I get into similar situations and I start messing up games like I messed up the couple of games in this freestyle event against Javokhir Sindarov, if Norway chess and or the World Cup simply do not go well for me in standard regular chess, there is a very realistic chance that I will probably start winding down my career, at least as it relates to slow games, and potentially retire from classical chess. Now, I do not say this lightly, of course, because I love the game of chess. I love competing, obviously, against all the great players out there, but it is something where you have to start being realistic, and if I'm not able to play well when I get into scrambles, that's something that's only going to get worse and worse over time. So maybe you can say I'm being too dramatic. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, obviously, but it is very much on my mind as a real thought at this point in time. At any rate, we do have to give credit to my opponent. The Blitz games, I think I should have probably won. It's hard to be too over-the-top positive about my opponent's play. But as far as the classical game, specifically yesterday when Sindarov defended very well, and definitely today in the classical game where with the black piece where I had the 2 bishops, he defended it resourcefully, you have to tip your cap to my opponent. And I definitely do give him a lot of credit for that. He's a young player who recently just crossed 2,700 in classical chess, and the future is very bright for him. So very disappointing day, obviously, for me. Not what I was hoping for. But tomorrow I will be playing as the current world champion, Domaraju Gukesh from India. We will again go back to playing 2 classical games. We'll see what happens. I don't really know how serious I'm going to take it, since effectively the tournament I feel like is over for me. But there are still some games to play. And I obviously, as always, will be doing a recap. So on that note, I hope you guys have enjoyed this recap from the second day of the quarterfinals of the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Tour being held here in Weisenhaus, Germany. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we'll be back with a recap tomorrow and in the coming days as I continue playing this tournament. See you guys soon, and have a great rest of your evening. Bye!